Welcome back, guys, to episode 13,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
right?
it's 13.
Okay,
Is
nice.
it 13 or 12 maybe? One of the two. We go
One of
through
the
this
two.
every single time.
And I'm too lazy to actually go and look before recording,
It's
so
fine. Episode 1, it starts with the 1. The number starts with the 1.
yeah.
It's in the,
So,
yeah, it might not. I was going to say it's in the teens, but 12 is on the teens, so.
okay. Go. I think you should introduce the topic today.
Yeah, so we were going to discuss, I recently read in the news that the University of California in the next, I think, 5 years is going to phase out SAT and ACT as part of the admissions requirement, which I guess you guys don't know, but I was like, I'm a big fan of like not having the SAT or ACT. But it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I know some schools like U Chicago, I think, had done it, but on a wide scale, like the entire system to start phasing it out, it's a pretty big call. So I guess we'll just share our thoughts about what we think is going to happen, how it's going to affect things, and such. So I'll let you go first, I guess.
Okay, I think they're right now. I can think of two outcomes. Outcome one, where it's like, I've seen like a couple universities do this. XYZ isn't required, but if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you won't be a competitive applicant. So like, hint, hint, if you can, hint, hint, do it. Nudge, nudge. I think that's I think the most likely thing that's gonna happen. I think they did it for people who are coming from a like sort of a disadvantaged background, or they can't afford to pay for like the SAT or SAT prep, and that'll give them a leg up. And I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Helping people from disadvantaged backgrounds. I'm pretty neutral when it comes to this, because I feel like it really doesn't change that much. I think it helps people, so I guess it has a net positive effect.
Yeah.
The second possibility is that I think you usually see this in other countries, not usually in the U.S., but like a sort of UC system exam, like the UC, like a SAT that the UC system cooked up by themselves, which would be really interesting. Not gonna lie.
I think that would be even worse though, like in the sense that like imagine if all like the school systems started doing that and people are applying all over the country, right? That's a lot of exams that you have to take just for specific
I think
schools.
in South Asia, I think that's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm talking about the U.S. though right now.
Yeah.
It's something. I think that wouldn't go down with a lot of people. I think people would just want to get rid of this like one exam determines everything for you altogether. But then like I guess the interesting thing is if you don't have this, then there's a lot more weight put on probably GPA and like extracurriculars and things like that. So it's like taking out another factor makes other things weight a lot more. Essays probably will become exponentially more important, considering that how you're going to differentiate like a 3.8 and a 3.8, right?
I think that like there's a section where they ask you your income. There might be like, okay, internally they're like, okay, if they're in this income bracket and they haven't taken the SAT, ACT, they went to really good high school, they had lots of resources, and the extracurriculars show that they had a ton of money, but their GPA is pretty okay. Then I think you'll be at a pretty huge disadvantage.
Yeah, I guess then maybe like you said about like it could be like like you were talking about earlier, like it could be like the SAT 2 thing where they're like, no, it's not required, but you know, you
You don't do it, you
wanna.
don't get in.
I wouldn't say that you wouldn't get in. It just helps.
High chance. Yeah.
It helps to send those scores and actually take the test. So yeah, I think from that perspective, it's definitely, it has its pros and its cons. But I think a lot of schools have started doing it because I think there's been a lot of complaints about, especially like the economic aspect of it. Like not everyone can afford to, like even like AP tests and stuff like that stuff costs like $135 or something like that per AP test. That's a lot, like to take an exam.
You have to buy the books too, and if you're like
Yeah.
really rich, you can afford tutoring, and you're just like, that doesn't really show how good of a like how academic you are, or how it doesn't really show your academic prowess in such a way that you could possibly.
But do you think that
other methods.
there's gonna be any issues then? Like because if there's no standardized test, then like a GPA at one school is not really equivalent to a GPA at another school because there's so many factors like about like the funding for the school and like like the overall environment and like access to like different resources and stuff like that. So like a GPA might not be an equivalent metric to differentiate students. Do you think that'll have like potential downsides?
The thing is, the GPAs are highly inflated across the board. Like maybe a 3 point. Like I remember my high school didn't have weighted GPA. We just have unweighted. So, like a person with like a 3.9 and one, even though you're right, I have an unweighted GPA. I don't have a weighted GPA. It's still like I feel it's like it's really easy for like high schools to like inflate stuff.
Yeah.
With the weighted GPA system.
Yeah, that I tend to agree with that. It can be a little inflated, but I just think there's a lot of inconsistencies. So much depends on like what teacher you have and like all that. Like what if you get like a teacher who just doesn't like inflating grades versus another student in some other school, like all the teachers like inflating grades, and are they really better or
I think we come back where we started. Then it's the same question, like, oh, what about the kids that go to more like rich kid schools, or like that actively like inflate grades and like you start where you stopped, and you're not really solving anything.
Yeah, I get that. I think though that it's a step in the right direction. I don't think you're ever going to get like a perfect system, but I think getting rid of the test, if they really get rid of it, not that like if they make it like that, we really highly recommend that you take it, because then that defeats the purpose, and anyone trying to like putting their full effort again will probably end up taking the test anyways. It's like how the SAT College Board like got rid of like the SAT requiring the essay, but then all the universities still said you have to take the essay. So it was kind of like that, right? So I'm just hoping that they don't actually do that, because that would be pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
There wouldn't be much change then. So it's totally like defeating the purpose from that perspective. But I kind of wish it happened earlier, before we applied.
I personally don't think it would have made a difference. To be very honest, I think they would have judged us like, you came from the Bay Area. You're like, oh, okay, this kid has probably enough money to take the SAT.
Yeah, it depends. I guess it depends on like if they're gonna make it standard for everyone that like it's just the SAT is like no longer part of like the consideration, or it's like based on they take into consideration your like your financial and like economic situation, and then say like, all right, he didn't take the SAT, we're not gonna hold that against him because he couldn't afford it. Versus if he could afford it, we're gonna hold it against him that you should have taken it and you just didn't want to take it. It's not that you couldn't. So it'll be really interesting to see. It'll be new for them. I think this is, I don't remember when the SAT was created, but I can't remember a time without it. So SAT and ACT, both.
I think we'll keep this short today.
Yeah, I think the topic can get saturated, and I think we've discussed as much as we can.
Yep.
So
yeah. We'll try to like if we ever get like no promises or anything, but we'll. I feel that we can like report on the UC a lot more now, because like we are part of the UC, so I feel we have like a more of a incentive to talk about more their like policies and stuff. So
yeah.
If you're interested in this type of stuff, maybe subscribe, hit nudge, wink.
Yeah. So we can have more than 2 subscribers.
And it's just me and you. Let's be honest. Let's be honest with the world.
I think we just post on YouTube just to listen to ourselves, because we're just that narcissistic.
Yep.
All right,
guys.
Bye to us, because we're the only ones that are going to be listening to this.
Yep.
All right.
All right then. See you next time. Bye.